Okay, let's get into the nitty gritty of the program and start talking about nutrition. So, our nutrition framework is simple, satisfying, and sustainable. So, we're really prioritizing structure over extremes and results without obsession. So, let's start with calories. Okay, I just want to talk a little bit about calories and how they work. So, your body does burn a certain amount of calories or a certain amount of energy every day. And this is called our TDEE, or our total daily energy expenditure. And it's made up, you can see here, by four key elements. The most of which, about 70%, is actually just keeping you alive, okay? Your vital functions like breathing, sleeping, watching Netflix on the couch accounts for about 70% of your total daily energy expenditure. The rest of it comes from just general everyday activities. That's about 15%. That's things like walking to and from work, folding the washing, picking your kids up from school. 10% comes from digestion. So we actually burn calories breaking down our food. And then this will surprise quite a few people. It's actually only about 5% of our total daily energy expenditure comes from intentional movement and exercise, right? So generally how it works is if you eat at your TDEE, you will maintain your weight. If you eat less, you'll have fat loss. If you eat the same, if you eat more, you'll gain. Okay. So this is why we're going to track our calories and our macronutrients, which are things like proteins, carbs, and fats, so that we can manage the process more intentionally and adjust if needed. It's also going to give you some really good education and insight in and around your nutrition habits, portion sizes. Think of tracking kind of as like a nutrition 101. Okay. It's not so much about controlling how much you put in your body. A lot of it is about the awareness and the education that you'll get from the process. So starting with the macronutrients, there are three key ones, or technically four if you include alcohol because it's its own macronutrient. Starting with protein. Now, all calories do come from macros, but the quality still matters, okay? So protein is your priority. Why? Because when we are trying to change our body composition, it's really important to support lean muscle, help reduce hunger, and boost recovery. If you're training and doing the right type of training, like resistance training, which we'll be doing, it is also really helpful to eat protein at regular intervals throughout the day to make sure that you're getting the most of that training. So we want to be trying to include around 30 to 40 grams at every meal. We will track this through your calories and we'll keep an eye on this. I will keep an eye on this as your coach, and you'll learn more about this as we go on. So don't worry if you don't understand what that looks like at this stage. Lean meat, eggs, yogurt, tofu, protein powder, those are examples of protein sources, but you will get a food list in the files of the group inside the Trainerize app, which will give you more of an idea of what this might include. Fats, okay? Fats play a critical role in hormone function, mood, and recovery. So think of things like avocado, olive oil, nuts, seeds, egg yolks, okay? We don't actually want to go too low in fat, particularly as women, particularly from a mood and hormonal point of view, okay? So I will have set your fat target for you inside of the app. And then finally, we've got carbs or carbohydrates, which is our body's preferred fuel source. So they're not essential like protein and fat in the sense that we could technically live without them, but they're damn good, right? That we really enjoy them, and they are really good for supporting training, and they also help keep our hormones healthy. So I do want you to try and choose mostly whole food carbohydrates, things like potatoes, oats, rice, fruit, starchy vegetables, sourdough bread. But there's also a little bit of room for some chocolate and that kind of thing here and there as well, which would be counted as your carbohydrates. It's also important to adjust your carbohydrates to your activity level. A general rule is the more active you are, the more carbohydrates you should consume. Quality when it comes to calories does matter, okay? So some people will say, it just comes down to calories in, calories out. Yes, that is true to a certain extent, but a calorie from salmon, greens, and rice will affect your hormones, your satiety, and your digestion much differently than the same number of calories from wine and biscuits, okay? So it absolutely does matter where your calories come from, and it just makes the process easier if they come from volume foods that fill us up and a good ratio in our macronutrients. Now, these are some daily nutrition habits that we want to look to implement over time to try and help along the fat loss process. So We want to try and stick to 3 to 5 meals a day. So brekkie, lunch, dinner, and 1 to 2 snacks. So eating at regular times helps you avoid grazing and snacking. We want to try and have protein in every meal. This is something that we will work on as a group together over time. We also want to try and have some plants or some vegetables in every meal, okay? I often recommend that you eat within a 12-hour window. Now, this isn't necessarily fasting, but it is quite good for digestion and just sort of overall eating habits and portion control, that if we keep it within a 12-hour window. So if you're having breakfast at 8 a.m., for example, I would consider closing the kitchen around 8 p.m. Water is really important. So we want to make sure that you don't get dehydrated. We often mistaken hunger for what is actually thirst, and water is really helpful for energy, sleep, and has a direct impact on your fat loss, okay? Which leads me to liquid calories. So we do want to try and limit liquid calories as much as possible. So things like sodas, frappes, purchase smoothies from Tank, alcohol, they are very caloric and they add up quickly. And depending on what your calorie goal is, they may not serve you that well during this process. You may have to limit them, okay? Things like herbal teas, diet sodas, black coffee, water with like water drops in them, all fine. Eat mindfully, not distracted. So put your phone down when you eat. I want you to make a real effort that every time you eat, ideally you're sitting down and you're concentrating on the food in front of you. Chew slowly. And if possible, and if this is something that you can make fit within your calories, which most of us will be able to, try to include a treat each day, like a bit of chocolate or ice cream. And I'll give you recommendations for some lower calorie options if you're having trouble there. It is just quite good for adherence, all right? Now, I just also wanted to talk about the structured flexibility method, which is a method that I want you to use when planning your meals. So it's often called 3-to-1 method. You might have heard it be referred to that before. So how it works, you basically structure your day into 4 eating occasions: breakfast, lunch, snack, and dinner. And you might have a snack after dinner if that's something that you like to do. All right. But essentially your first 3 meals are primarily whole foods. So they're high protein, high fiber, nutrient rich, and they're consistent. So they essentially repeat day to day, not necessarily for the whole 12 weeks, but it might be that you repeat your breakfast, lunch, and snack Monday through Sunday for week 1, and then change them for week 2, and then change them for week 3 for some more variety. But basically, we want to think about easy meals that you can enjoy and prep quickly. And I'll obviously give you ideas and help you out with that. So here's an example. It might be that for the first week, you have protein oats with fruit for breakfast. For lunch, you have a poke bowl. For an afternoon snack, you have some veggie sticks and dip. But then by the time we've got to our snack, what this means is that you've actually already probably nailed your protein and your fruit and veggie intake for the day. And you're probably still sitting relatively low on calories, okay, which gives you a little bit more flexibility for dinner, which is where most people need it most, because dinner tends to be a more flexible meal, doesn't it? Whether that's eating out, dining with family, or just wanting a bit more variety. So this works great for families, work days, or social nights out, but it also reduces the mental load and keeps you consistent, and it makes tracking really easy because you're just copying and pasting your breakfast from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday to Thursday. You could essentially pre-log pretty much the whole week, all right? So this approach works because it creates a calorie buffer, it reduces decision fatigue, but it also keeps you full and focused during the day. But then it lets you relax and enjoy your evening meals without blowing your targets, okay? So this is a structure that I would like to incorporate throughout the program. It works. I've used it with a number of my clients. It really is especially helpful. So it's fat loss, but it's done realistically.